Welcome back guys to the Interstellar Exploration Devlog series. Last video I finished some environment generation tools and established that my lacking artistic ability wasn't going to be the death of this game. This video is more of a recap of what I managed to get done during my uni semester. While I was editing the last video, I realized a few things needed a little bit of a refactor. In particular, I noticed that the ocean system was a little inefficient. Each ocean tile is procedurally generating its own mesh at runtime, and that's silly because each mesh is identical, it's just a plane. There's no need for this data to be duplicated for each water tile. So to fix this, what I did is make it so the ocean system component generates the water mesh and then just sends that to the ocean tile components to render their little ocean waves. After I fixed that, I noticed a similar problem with the items and resources. Both have a lot of data that never changes and doesn't need to be instanced. For example, the name of a log is never going to change and neither is the name of a tree, so there's no real point having this data duplicated for each log or tree. So to fix this, I made two scriptable objects, one for items and one for resources. The item data object just stores the name, whether or not it's stackable in the inventory, icon texture and prefab reference, and the resource data object stores name, potential item drops, frequent item drops, and the health of the resource. This just basically means that if I have like 1,000 logs sitting on the ground in front of me in game, it's all using one string for the name and all that kind of stuff. It just stops the data being duplicated 1,000 times. Anyway, none of these things were going to cause the game to crash or become unplayable because computers are quick, but it's just good to refactor stuff as you go along. So, moving on. Due to my uni commitments, I haven't been able to focus on one thing in particular, but I have been able to do bits and pieces here and there. One thing I did manage to get done was a save data system. Under the appropriately named save data directory, there will be save files for players, inventories, and planets. The reason why all the data is split up like this instead of all being in one save data file is because it's not ever going to be needed all at once. For example, when a player first loads into the game, all he really needs is his player data and his inventory data. The world data for each planet isn't needed until a player actually decides to fly to a planet, and the inventory data for every single chest on the planet isn't needed till the player actually loads into the planet. After I finished that, I decided to take a break from programming and hop into Blender. Something I've been meaning to do for a while is create a 3D tile set for ship levels. At the moment, the player ship kind of just looks like a carrot, and that's not good. This took about a whole day, and afterwards I had a 3D tile set that when I snapped stuff together could resemble ship corridors. It's still far from perfect, but it's better than the 3D carrot that I basically had earlier. Once I had some time free from uni, I decided that I am not a fan of the way gravity works in game at the moment. I thought it would be cool if different planets also had their own gravitational pull and wasn't just stuck to the constant physics limit of Unity's engine. So I created gravity volumes. The way this works is that every single rigid body that enters this volume has a force applied to it that is set on the gravity volume component. Having a direction of 0 causes everything to be pulled into the middle unless you have a negative gravitational force, in which case it forces everything out. As fun as this is to play around with, I had to stop wasting time playing around with rigid bodies and move on to something else. So one of the biggest hurdles this game is going to have is networking. I've done networking in games before, but usually what happens is the entire game takes place in one scene for everybody. But Interstellar Exploration will need to have multiple scenes running in parallel. Unity is not capable of running more than one active scene at a time. When you switch scenes, it Thanos snaps everything out of existence and replaces it with the new scene. There is additive scene loading, which kind of just loads one scene into another. This means that any geometry that share the same world space clip into each other though, so that's kind of not what we're looking for. This pretty much means that the server has to run with an empty scene. This brings up an issue though of the server not being able to calculate collisions with the environment for players and items. So that's what I'm currently working on now, which is trying to determine whether or not mirror can be used for the networking in this game. If it turns out it can't, I'll have to look for other solutions, potentially Unity's own networking solution for their data-oriented tech stack. This would involve moving the game to use Unity's entity component system, which is still in preview, and Unity themselves have said is not ready for a full game to be made in yet. However, I think Mirror will be a viable option for this game. I've been using it the last week, and so far I've done a few multiplayer tests with multiple computers. I've implemented a basic chat system and a few commands to make testing a bit easier. One thing that I did find kind of funny was that server-side physics suck anyway, so we're not missing out on anything there. Hopefully, by the next devlog, I'll have at least found a hacky way to manage players in separate scenes. Till then, see you in the next one. Ciao.